Acts chapter 19, verses 13 to 16. Then certain of the vagabond Jews, exorcists, took upon them to call over them which had evil spirits, the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, saying, We adjure you by Jesus who Paul preacheth. And there were 7 sons of one Sceva, a Jew, and a chief of the priests, which did so. And the evil spirit answered and said, Jesus I know, and Paul I know, but who are ye? And the man in whom the evil spirit was leaped on them and overcame them and prevailed against them, so that they fled out of the house naked and wounded. Hey everybody, welcome to Tea Talk. This is Nick. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for stopping by. Please leave some comments if you have some questions, if you want to share a story. Just leave them down below. I'll read them out here when I do these videos here. This verse is very important to me. It was part of the revelation given to me going through my second spiritual awakening, when the whole Bible itself just unfolded continuously, night after night after night after night, for a period of some 3.5 years. And then after that, I was still having revelations, not as frequent. They were spiritual glimpses coming to me and supporting me and guiding me and helping me grow and mature spiritually. When you have these visions, these revelations, these mystical, supernatural experiences, one is for an awakening purpose, to wake you up to the greater you that you truly are. And the other is to always be in your life as a guide, support, and confirmation of not it being sleepwalk or something that the world calls hallucination. That's why you have spiritual glimpses. They help you expand and know more about yourself and mature in spirituality and in your true spiritual nature. And also, they are there as a confirmation and always to instill confidence in you so you don't fall into the trap of feeling doubt, feeling that this was all a hallucination. That is the purpose of them. And there is no scientific explanation or remedy or medicine that you can take to eliminate them. When your time comes, everything of your spiritual nature will start unfolding in you. And the testimonies of people who have left behind, who have had these spiritual experiences, you will be a witness to, and no different and the same and one and alike as the people that came before you. Now you are the spiritual teacher who in the future people will look back on and be a witness to of what you are saying and what you have experienced. And you can only say this through experience. Everything else is what has filled the libraries that is called spirituality, because there is a very real concept out there called spirituality, very real teachings where people haven't had spiritual experience, don't understand spiritual experience, but think they can capitalize on it, think they can make some sort of gain. Kind of like a good segue into Acts chapter 19, verses 13 to 16. I want to share an experience I had back in 2021. Between 2019 and 2021, I experienced so much of Paul. I literally was walking in Paul's footsteps, from experiencing the moment at Ephesus to experiencing this, which I will talk about in a second, to experiencing pretty much everything of Paul and what Paul was saying. And that is why I think Paul is very important and is great. And he's absolutely the greatest gift that you could have in understanding your spiritual nature. Because Paul struggled so much with his, and yet he left so much meat for us in the letters. I will put this out there because it is hard to confirm a Paul. There's no record anywhere in the historical archives of a Paul, but Paul was given to us through Luke. Luke wrote the book of Acts, and it seems to me at some point Luke kills off Peter and puts someone greater in Peter's place, or just as great as Peter, and that is Paul. And Paul continues on, even though Luke is the author of Acts, being the one we recognize and identify with, and he continues on through all the letters, Paul. I believe that is Luke's way of creating or showing us possibly someone he encountered that had this conversion, transformed spiritually, and documented all of his struggles that had happened. Again, all of these stories in here, the way they are written as stories, are parables and allegories, and they are to be treated that way, into understanding that they are a testimony, a truth hidden in the story of a testimony and the experiences of the one who left these documents behind for us. I don't believe there is any historical value whatsoever to them, but I believe there is eternal value to them, salvation value to them, immortal understanding, divinity of what you truly are, value in them. That being said, I want to share this experience that I had with you back a few years ago. And I found myself at a football stadium, in a football field. And I was in the stands. And I don't know who was playing. It was some sort of NFL game that was going on. I don't know if it was San Francisco because I saw a lot of red coats. I don't know if it was Kansas City. I don't know who was playing. I do know I was in the stands next to someone. And this man was old. And I know this man. This man, during my first spiritual awakening, was a bit of a pain in my ass, a thorn in my side, as Paul would say, you know. And he didn't believe anything of what I was talking about, spirituality, about Jesus Christ awakening in me, about having union with God. He just mocked it all, made fun of it. And I used to work with them, and I can't tell you how many times I had panic attacks in the middle of work, in the middle of doing my job, because of the way this man treated me. Anyways, I found myself in the stands, standing next to him. I didn't immediately recognize him, but he had one of those red jackets. Like I said, I don't know if it was San Francisco or Kansas City or one of the red NFL teams that was playing, but he had this red jacket, as did so many other people in the stands watching the football game. And I was talking to him, and he was looking at me. He says, "You don't recognize me. You don't remember me." I said, "Yes, I do. I remember you clearly." And just as he said that, he tilted his head, and I saw the back of his jacket had his name on it, Gregory. And this guy, Greg, as I said, he was a thorn in my side during my first spiritual awakening. He's one of the people that made me burn everything that I had documented, because I couldn't face the persecution and the condemnation and the prejudices that came along with it. And I ended up just destroying everything that I had documented and worked so hard on to keep a timeline and a sequence of events. And he was one of the contributors to me failing. Not failing, because like I said, everyone in their first spiritual awakening will go back to the world. How you go back to the world is a different situation. For me, it was I wasn't strong enough to handle all the judgment, the condemnation, the persecutions, the accusations. The disturbance was so loud and like an earthquake, constantly, rattling through me and moving around through me. I couldn't handle it at all. And when he tilted his head as we were talking, I saw his jacket. And I realized that's Gregory. It's Gregory. And we started talking, but I had this compassion and this love for him. I also recognized that this possibly could have been a scene where this man has passed from this world, and wherever he was in the world, in his world at that time, not in ours, but in his, he may have come to an awakening. And at that moment, he was seeking guidance. And I was there, and I didn't judge him. I didn't accuse him of the things he said to me. I didn't say anything to him. We had this pleasant conversation. I was very compassionate, very caring towards him. And then I left him alone, and I left. That is union with God, someone who is a servant of God and standing in the place of God, as I touched upon before in my previous video, which you guys will experience and be a part of when you see people coming to you and asking you and confessing in you and talking to you about, some sort of guidance or some sort of inspiration or some sort of change in their life. And at that moment, you are standing in the place of God, and that person speaking to you is having union with God. I'm not special. Neither are you, neither is anyone else. Everyone will hopefully, because I've never heard anyone talk about this, will hopefully come to this place and understand that is what is happening. That is exactly what is happening. So once I left Greg, I ended up finding myself walking through a parking lot and into a building, and this building was a science lab. At the time, we didn't have lockdown mode. We were preparing to go into lockdown mode with the pandemic upon us, and we hadn't gone into lockdown mode yet. And I'm walking through this, what seems to be a lab of some kind, and there's all sorts of like little petri dishes all over the place, magnifying microscopes all over the place. And there's these cages, and these cages have diseases in them. And as I'm walking by these cages, all these diseases and all these flies and weird insects are calling out my name. Nick, 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 Nick. I turned around and I looked at him and I said, stop, stop. That's where you belong, and that's where you're going to stay. You're going to stay right there in that jail cell until I think it's time for you to be released. Again, this is coming from the book of Revelation. But what I saw here was recognition, that these evil entities, these things recognized me. This was symbolic of Acts 19, chapter 13 to 16, playing out before me. A few months, or I should say a couple of years, not a few months, but a couple of years later, I would experience this from a different perspective, and it would play out almost identical to the book of Acts chapter 19, where I found myself walking down this street. It was evening, the street lights were lit up all over the place, the moon was hanging above us, and the stars were clearly visible. It was a beautiful evening. And I'm walking, and I see three women. Beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. I can't even describe the beauty, as I've tried to so many times here, to point out how beautiful we truly are as spiritual beings. And there is no comparison to how lifeless and how we assume beauty is in the world of separation and amnesia. So these three gorgeous women approach me, and they start talking to me. And two of them want to rob me. Two of them want to take what I have on me. One of them actually wants to beat me up, and the other one wants to rob me of what I have. And someone lurking in the shadows jumps out having a baseball bat and was about to clobber me. And the one girl that wasn't a part of this stepped forward and said, "Don't touch him. I know him and I know Jesus Christ. Do not touch him. Do not lay a hand on him." I didn't feel fear in this dream. As you will recognize when you're playing out these parts, there is no fear. Even if you're playing out a part of death, even if you're playing out the part of Satan, even if you're playing out a part of God, Jesus Christ, or a servant or someone, the whole Bible will unfold and you'll play all the characters in it. There was no fear. None whatsoever. I wasn't worried about being clobbered over the head with a bat because I knew they couldn't touch me. They couldn't do anything to me. I know they couldn't rob me, and I know that that other girl couldn't beat me up if she wanted to. But someone stepped forward and said, "I know Nick. Do not touch him. And I know Jesus Christ." And when the person backed away, I ended up waking up from this dream. So these two experiences, separated by some 2 years apart, one being a reference to the lockdown. And again, not a premonition. I'm not psychic. I will never, ever in this world, no matter how much foresight or insight I have into what is happening ahead of me, ever claim to be psychic. Because I know it is all a process of spirituality. I know it is all a process of spiritual growth. I will not give recognition to some stupid thing as being called psychic, or thinking that I'm psychic, or thinking that I'm more psychic than you are. We all go through this change, and discernment and intuition is heightened, and it manifests what we truly are. But it doesn't manifest us so that we can become some kind of showboat and walk around and talk about turning tricks and doing things for other people just to get an applause or something from them, you know. So I saw this acts play out in two different ways, where these diseases and infections and whatnot that were locked up in this lab recognized me and knew me and were calling me by name. And I told them, as in the book of Revelation, um, that, you know what, that's where you belong, that's where you stay, and you will be in that cage, in that jail cell, until it's time for me to release you. And then a couple of years later, what plays out is very similar and very close to Acts chapter 19, verses 13 to 16. I don't know if you will have this experience, and I hope that you do, so you could recognize what you truly are spiritually with such a clarity and understand that you are the Jesus Christ spoken of. You are the God that you are looking for, and God is always in you and with you, and God awakens in you. Rouse thyself. Why sleepest thou, O Lord? Do not cast us off forever. That is not a reference to an external God. That is a reference to God in you. Wake up. Wake up. We need your help. Wake up. And that's part of the journey leading to spiritual awakening. You're going to go through all the furnaces and all the trials and all of the difficulties of the world, the sleepwalk, the amnesia, and the separation. And then you'll come to a point where finally something happens and awakens within you. And that awakening within you is the God that is within you. And then your spiritual awakening begins, and you start recognizing that all of this time, all of the how you felt powerless and weak leading up to this moment of awakening, your help was always with you, always constantly with you, but asleep because you were fooled by the thought-based world, and you were walking in amnesia, and it was God sleepwalking through the amnesia, pretending he is you, and you thinking that you are someone in the world until you come to that moment of awakening and realize you are what you've been looking for. You are the Jesus Christ you're looking for. You are the God that you are looking for. And these experiences will unfold for a period of time, nonstop, constant revelation. And as I said, you will play many, many parts. You will fulfill very many parts of the Bible. And even if you're not reading the Bible, and even if you don't believe in the Bible, that's fine. That's okay. Because most of these experiences that I had, I would say probably 80% of the experiences that I've had and I'm sharing with you, I wasn't reading the Bible. I didn't know that they were in the Bible. I only found out after, when I started investigating the Bible, when I started reading it. So you don't have to read the Bible, but it will unfold in you. And it will unfold in a symbolic way that you may identify it and identify with it, I should say, and recognize that it is coming from the Bible, as I did when I had the experience of Jacob, and I was able to find it in the Bible. Or it may show up symbolically in a different way, but play out exactly as it's written in the Bible. But it could play out in modern times, and the symbolism could be very modern and very 21st century. And yet, when you come across it in the Bible, you'll recognize the symbolism and you'll say, holy smokes, that just like unfolded in me. That came from the Bible. And you will investigate it. But I'm telling you that you will play every single part, every single negative part, every single neutral part, and every single positive and good part. All of it will unfold in you to reveal that that's what you are. You are neither good, neither bad. You are not neutral or lukewarm, as it says in the book of Revelation. There is only one power in the world, and that from that one power in the world comes what we call good and bad and evil and love and joy and happiness. There are not two powers in the world. There is not a negative and a positive, and there isn't like you're in a line somewhere and you have to pick negative or positive. No one can tell you what your experience is going to be, because God is definitely asleep, playing and dreaming the part of the murderer, the rapist, the most evil, heinous person in the world. And then that person has to come to that point of awakening and recognize it. And then there's a judgment, and that judgment is confrontation of all of the things that you went through in the amnesia and the sleep. There is no St. Peter at the pearly gates and someone sitting on a grand giant throne that decides whether you enter in or not, or if your name is on a list or not. There is only the judgment that you face when you come to spiritual awakening, and that is the confrontation of everything that you had gone through in your life up until that moment, and you're facing it, and you're realizing and separating it, actually, and you're realizing that you've always belonged to unity. You've always belonged to one. There is no other than one. And you understand your travels and journey through the sleepwalk and through the separation that is the world. And these experiences, when you have them, these revelations, like I said, for a period of time, they will come on and they will be with you for a period of time, and then they will dissipate. And from then on, you will have little moments. That is how you grow from a baby into a mature spiritual being. And you have these spiritual glimpses that are separated, sometimes by months, sometimes by years, sometimes by days, sometimes by weeks, but they're separated. And when they come on, it's the term, as I always refer to, that Neville has coined, called, expansion and contraction. That expansion is your limitlessness, is you having unlimited potential at that moment and recognizing it and knowing that you are it. And then you come back, back to your normal self, go about your daily routine, and somewhere down the road, you'll have another one. These are always confirmations and always identifications of what you truly are, so that you don't forget, so that you don't fall asleep again, so that you do not become a victim of doubt and fear and all the nonsense in the world. Although you can't really get away with it, by understanding this and by constantly having these little spiritual glimpses come into your life, whether they be through synchronicities or intuition or dreams, revelations, stuff like that, one way or another, they were always a confirmation of what you truly are, so that you don't forget once you've awakened and remembered what you truly are. So I think it's important in sharing the experiences. I think that's one way you can separate the person who has actually had an experience from the person who is manipulating you by studying in a library or in a school of spirituality somewhere, has not had an experience, which you can see here in the book of Acts. As you can see in chapter 13, near the end of chapters 13, the exorcists, the Jews of the time who believed in this exorcism and were casting out exorcisms just by the sleepwalk and the amnesia, fooling people into thinking that they are, possessed or something or another, and thinking they had the cure by doing some tricks. It says here of these people, it says in the very last sentence, it says, "We adjure you by the Jesus whom Paul preacheth." These people have no understanding of a Jesus. They've not had union with God. They have no understanding of Paul's teaching. But they say, by Paul's teaching, we cast you out. By the Jesus Christ, by Paul's Jesus Christ, we cast you out. And that is wrong, because see, that is from an educational perspective. That's the scribes, that's the lawyers, that's the scholars, the people, the rulers of the time who had stuck their noses in a book and didn't pull it out of there. And along comes someone who is spiritually awake, spiritually gifted, and understands, that just by imagining someone being healthy, or just by being in the presence of someone who is spiritually awake, that person can be healed and can be helped. They didn't have a concept of this. They didn't have that awakening in them. And that's why they refer to Paul's Jesus Christ, because they didn't have the Jesus Christ in them, which is the power and the wisdom and the strength to see everything beautiful all around you, and that there cannot be any illness or sickness or anything like that. And the other thing to recognize is that there is only Jesus Christ in the world. But they didn't have that understanding, that awakening. Again, they say, by Paul's Jesus Christ. There was no confidence in themselves. They needed to piggyback on the confidence of Paul. And that doesn't work. As you saw, as this story, this allegory, this parable plays out, they couldn't achieve what they wanted to achieve, and they ended up running away naked. Naked is by thinking that they had some sort of power, some sort of thing that they can do, wave a magic wand over them, and all of a sudden the evil spirit would come out, and they ran away without even having that power. They were powerless, and that's what it means to be naked. They were powerless, and they ended up running off. But you could see that there was only a teaching. There was only an understanding. There was a mocking also, thinking like, well, how can Paul do these things? And we, who have prided ourselves as being exorcists and have studied the books and continuously study the books and use the books to perform these false miracles of removing devils and demons and whatnot. And along comes this guy and he just uses one word, Jesus Christ. Well, hey, what if we use that one word, Jesus Christ, also? But we don't have the experience. So then we're powerless. We're naked. We run off because we don't know what to do, because now we've been confronted and our mystery has been revealed, and it has been a sham, and it has also confronted us and been taken from us. Again, naked, running away. So these experiences are how you identify yourself with another, and hopefully you won't be fooled, and hopefully people speaking on experiences will tell you the truth, because I don't think they can speak on them if they haven't had them, if it hasn't happened to them. And those who do not speak on them, because I've heard very many spiritual gurus, people who are popular and have a large subscriber base, say that they don't speak about their spiritual experiences. Well, I think it is important to speak on them. I think it is a testimony to what has happened to you, and you being a witness of what was said in the past, of what has happened to others, is very true. And that is the only way that we can uplift one another. That is the only way we can help one another, is by being truthful and honest and not trying to deceive one another. So I don't really believe that someone sharing their spiritual experience can deceive you, because first of all, it will somehow resonate with you. Either it will be similar, or the symbolism of it will match up and line up in frequency with your experience that you are having and undergoing through your spiritual change and understanding of the true spiritual divine being that you truly are. So I thought I just wanted to share this with you and kind of like look at some of the important things here in Acts chapter 19. But more than anything, I just wanted to say that these spiritual revelations, these revelations of what you truly are that happen to you, are always a confirmation of being awake and not having some sort of hallucination, as the world of sleep and sleepwalk and amnesia will consider them. Because that's, like I said, unless someone has had an experience, all you're going to get is mocking, as I did, from a man named Gregory in my life back in 1996, to whoever it may be in your life who doesn't understand and will just consider you and will try and knock you down and mock you and try and discourage you and try and beat you up. You also have to understand that that is a reflection of you, of where you came from once upon a time. And now you're in this place where you're getting stronger and stronger every day. It may hurt in the beginning. You may still feel the stresses and the pressures of life and the negativity of life around you, but you do get stronger. You get stronger and stronger by staying grounded and by always understanding the spiritual glimpses that come into your life. They are your strength, and they are the revelation of what you truly are. And they are there to affirm that you yourself, don't worry about what is happening around you. You yourself know what you truly are. And they help you grow and mature and strengthen you. No different than you would a baby growing up, maturing and learning and understanding and whatnot. Anyways, this is Nick. This is Tea Talk. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys next time.